Okay, so what we're going to do here is I've got a bit of reference. There's another sign that goes on the side of the subway entrance. It's basically like you attach anything to this, we're not responsible. If anything happens to a kind of sign. So I found a bit of reference, clipped it out. That's it to the right there. Now I'm just typing it out myself so I can excuse me, fill in give it the right font, right spacing, put it on the sign here, and do a little aging to it. So there we go. I've got it typed out. Now I'm just going to try to find. Sorry about that noise. The right type of font and spacing. I think I got her. Now I've just got to adjust the size a bit, and then go back in with the editing with the text tool, and get it so it fits on the sign properly. Oh, it looks pretty good actually. I'm just gonna adjust it a tad here. The actual size of the font. Now I'm just gonna add a little detail, the little line across, erase a bit, rasterize the text layer. Do the same, erase here and there. Paint's faded over the few years that this subway entrance has been up. The subway entrances aren't all the same in New York City. They pretty much every single one you see is different. So really, you can't go wrong with whatever you do on this. I mean, I guess if you really wanted to, if you're in New York City, you could take a bunch of pictures and build one from the get-go with to the exact minute detail. But we're not going to do that. So what we're going to do now is make the bolts that appear throughout. Just had a little reference picture there I got off of cgtextures.com. Just copied her, shrink her down. Just saving my file here. So I've got my little itty bitty bolt there. Desaturate it, place it where I think I want to go, shrink her down. I was just basically doing repeat last step, which is Alt Control T after you've done a transform. So now I'm just going to erase out what I want. Wasn't happy about erasing it that low of detail. I was too pixely. So I erase her up a larger scale and then shrink it down. You can see it's pixely, but you blur it out a bit, crank up the lightness, contrast, you can get a decent looking result. Just adding a little bevel and emboss to it. There you go. Perfect little bolt. Gives the detail that you want. The well enough. You know you can spend all day making a sweet ass looking bolt, but in the end, nobody's really going to pay too much attention to it. They're just going to know that they're there and that it just feels right. So I'm just going to copy them and move them around to, excuse me, to the appropriate places. So I'm just looking around to see where. Just Control J that layer, slide them up with the move tool. Copy one, move it over. There's some on these little pole bases, almost like a utility cover that they need to get some wiring. They could just remove these and pop off that little cover. So I'm just going to open the file in Maya because I want to know where to put the ones on the side rails. But I've been working on this for a while. I can't exactly remember where that piece is. So I'm just going to go into my UV editor here, select the face, excuse me, make sure I'm putting them on the right side. So there we go. I know that's where I want to put some more bolts. Move it around here. Got on that side, so they're directly above each other. Just double check. Alright, go back. Now I want to find out where they are. And these, so there we go. I moved them around, put them in the proper spot. Now I realize that there's some on this area and I can't remember where they are. So there we go. I found out where they should be placed. Go back to my Photoshop file. Copy. Move down. Marquee tool. Control inside the marquee. You can select around and move it. Control J that layer. Control E to combine those two layers, and another Control J to duplicate the layer and slide it over to the other side. So I realized that, you know, these bases would be actually probably bolted right into the cement. So I'm just going to pop some of these on here, and then I'm going to use this layer to create a black and white layer that I can use with the NVIDIA filter Photoshop plugin to create a normal map. So I'm just finishing that off. Oh, looks like I didn't copy those right, so I'll just make another copy. Not crazy about all these, so I just darken them up. They're a little too bright, a little too new. Give some oxidization to them. They are, after all, out in the elements, especially in New York. So now what I'm going to do is a little detail on the side here. Almost like, I'm not exactly, to tell you the truth, 100% sure what they are, but it almost looks like some sort of vent system detail on the side of the TVs. On the side of the TV. So I'm just going to make one. Use the bevel and emboss effect on it. Just give it a little lip. Just change it as low as you go, 90 degrees for the angle of the lighting. Just picking the multiply color and the screen color, basically the highlight and the shadow. So now I'm just going to excuse me, add in just a little detail there. I wasn't happy with the bevel and emboss; kind of looked too fake, so I got rid of it. I'm just going to add my own little highlight. Get a nice tiny brush. And I'm going to just add some little highlight myself. I select the marquee of the actual rectangle, and Control I is the inverse selection, so I don't have to worry about going into the black area. So I'm just adding a little, you know, a little rust, a little water stain drippage. I'm going to marquee that in there. Erase what? Then Control C copy, Control V paste. You can see to the right there it's making a bunch of new layers. Then I just combine the three. Control J, combine those. Control J that, and then I can just move down. I've got like a copy of 6 now. So now what I've done is I've selected them in Control I inverse. Now I'm just going to add a little more detail, a little more uniqueness to these things. They'd be a little beat up. They are, after all, going to be inset, so there are edges that'd be scuffed up. Water stains, dirt, grime, pollution. You're talking a major metropolitan city, so there's gonna be grime and dirt on these things. They're not too particular about keeping these that clean. And there's so many of them that it would be impossible. So I'll just Control J that whole layer, move it over to the other side, the appropriate spot. save my file. I've done enough work that if it crashed on me, I'd be very upset. Excuse me. I apologize for the sniffling. So see there, what I did was I took my bolts layer, made a layer underneath it that's just black. Um, Everything I want to pop out, you make white. So I've just adjusted the levels, made them completely white. Levels shortcut is Control L. Now I'll bring it up. Now I'm just going to go through here, select my little TV detail I have there. I realized I kind of goofed up and I shouldn't have flattened the layers with all the rust and detail on it. So now I just got to go through quickly here and marquee out all that stuff. So I just have the nice, clean, crisp outline of the rectangles. So I fill that with black, move that selection over. Fill that with black. There's some spots I missed, so I just got to basically go through and start fixing them all up. Not the wasn't the smartest of photoshopping that I did there, but you know what, you're gonna make mistakes, and you basically just have to fix them as fast as possible. This really only took say maybe 5 minutes to fix. Things happen. So now I'm just going through and just again marqueing these outside edges and deleting these little artifacts that just can't seem to get rid of, unfortunately. But this is easy enough. Move that down. Delete. There we go. So I've got my my second normal map TGA. So I save those. Turn off all those layers again. Go back to my original PSD file. Now I'll go and I'll open those two files. Go to the NVIDIA plugin filter. Punch in the numbers. If you don't have this, get this. This is basically the original way of making normal maps quickly in Photoshop. There's crazy bump out there now too. That is quite good. But this is free, and for things like bolts and little rectangles that are popping into the side of TVs, it's the perfect thing. So what I've got my normal maps, drag and drop them into the file, move them to the appropriate spots in the normal map folder. Do the overlay trick I told you before in the blue channel, change it to 127, and then change the layer type to overlay, and it basically won't block out any of the detail that you have underneath in your normal map, like scratches, the high poly bake, all that's good stuff. So I'm going to use that bolt reference I have before. I like the grime that was on top of it that's collected in the bolt section. So I'm just going to grab that, marquee it, copy it, drag it over. I'm going to use it down for the base and basically the bottom part of the side railing. So almost where it just looks like there's a bunch of soot and pollution that's collected in this area. And basically just overlay it on top. Make sure it's tileable. Make a couple layer duplicates of it. So there's a bit of a seam there. Just go in, erase, take the duplicate, move it over top of the other one a bit, say 10-15%, and you erase out with a nice soft edge brush, and boom, you got a tileable texture. So I've just duplicated it twice. Sorry, once, and now I'm just erasing out the area that is blatantly the reference. The overlay is nice, but I mean it's not going to blend it perfectly in, so you just got to erase a bit of it. So I just duplicated it and rotated it, so there'll be dirt coming from the top edge too, the top shelf part. Excuse me. So in a little bit, I'm going to be, well, I'll just move this here. I'll tell you in a little bit. We're going to be taking it into a program called Body Paint, where I'm going to repair all the seams that all these overlays have obviously created. I'm just saving my file here. Body Paint's a great thing. You can do textures from scratch in there. You can do pretty much everything in there. I use it quite a bit for seam fixing. It sure as hell beats the old way of doing it in Photoshop and making my new changes and saving it and seeing it in your 3D program. See if you fix the seam, then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It used to be a huge pain in the ass when doing it that way. So when Body Paint came along and I discovered it, it was glorious. So what I'm doing now is just going to do some rust accumulations around these bolts. Just got a light and dark, just a couple shades, couple tones of a rusty red. Just taking a little standard brush, just adding it here and there. I'll select that. I use that layer I made before to make the normal map template of the bolts, and I'll just control click on that layer, make the selection of those bolts, and hit delete. So that erases what rust and everything I've painted over top of the bolts. It's a quick way to stencil to mask out things. So I'm not worried too much here. I'm just adding details here and there, a little rust here and there. That will in the end, just add another layer of authentication. Another layer of just cool things to look at to make it look believable. Quite a few bolts here, so just plowing through it as fast as possible and sped up with the recording process here. Again, this only took a few minutes to do in real time. Again, control click that selection. I could just hit delete on the rust layer and masks it out for me. So I'm just darkening the rust up here and there. Making sure, just closing off some files, seeing if I need, if I've got all the bolts. I'm saving it. So now I've opened up Body Paint here, and as you can see, it's quite similar to almost a mesh of Photoshop and a 3D program together. To the right there, you have layers, your color palette, and then in the center there, you obviously have your viewport, and along the left, you have a toolbar. So what I've done is you just save out your. I'm just going to open my file here. It's an OBJ. You just export it out. And then to the right there, you go up to the materials, you hit File, New, you make a new material, you double click it, and select dialog box comes up. You find your PSD. A little selection will, a little dialog box will come up asking. It'll be telling you it can't find a file in its own cache. I would say I select no because I want to save it in my original spot. What will happen if you hit yes is that it will save the PSD, TGA, PNG, whatever you're working on, in its own slot. So it could lead to some confusion later on when you open up your original PSD and you can't find your changes that you spent 4 hours working on. So always hit no. This saves a lot of frustration. So what you do then is you right click on the little material ball. You can do this in any order. First you hit enable 3D paint and it will crisp up your texture. When you don't have 3D paint enabled, it just gives like a mipped out, a low res version of the texture. So enable 3D paint is one you select, and you right click again, and you hit apply, as you see highlighted right there. It'll take a bit of time. So there we go. We have our texture um, on our map, on our object here. I'm finding the files that I'm going to fix the seams on. So I'm turning off the stuff I don't need, and I'm going to start from the bottom. And basically, what I do is I just select the layer I want and reset it back to its normal state. So if it was, say, an overlay, I just move it back to normal, and if there was any sort of opacity um, amount on it, say it was at 75%, I just drag the slider up to the right there on top of the layer box to 100%. So it's back to its original state. And then what you need to do is go up into Tools on your top menu bar there, and you'll see Projection Painting. And that is basically you'll paint on it, and it will give you a true result. Whereas if you paint it just into 3D paint mode, you'll get seams still, even as you paint it out. So I just do that, and I use the clone tool. So you'll see me go along here, and you can see the obvious seam. I'll turn on projection painting. It's slow to rotate around once you because it's calculating the result of what you've done. So I've got my brush attributes here. I'm just taking a standard brush, going along, and I'm just cloning out things really quickly. You don't want to go use too large of a brush, and you want to have a soft edge brush, so it kind of blends in. But if you use too large of a brush, you start seeing the obvious cloned areas. But with so many layers here that are overlays, you can do this quite fast, because once you hit overlay again, it blends right in, and even the most trained eye would have a hard time picking out the cloned areas. So I'm just picking the cement here, going through it at a pretty rapid pace here. I'm not too picky about where I'm cloning it from, just as long as it covers up those seams. So you can see the hourglass pop up every so often, even sped up. That's taken a while to calculate what I've done to it. So then what I'll do is when you're done with the one layer, you have to get out of projection painting, so you have to go back into 3D painting mode. I go back to the layer I was just on, adjust it back to its new state, the overlay opacity, turn that layer off, move on to the next one, and repeat the process all over again, changing it back to its normal overlaid state, going along to where the seams are, painting them out. You do this a few times, you remember where exactly all the seams are that you need to paint. Like I said with body paint before, I believe on CG Toots they have quite an extensive body paint tutorial. I watched some of it, not all of it, but some of it one day, and it's quite good. So I highly recommend watching that one. So I'm not going to go too far into detail with what you can do with body paint, but it is a great program, and you can do a lot of things, from the basic, like fixing seams, like I am, to texturing your entire character, object, prop, vehicle, whatever you may be building in body paint. It can handle pretty much every type of filter you have from Photoshop, but it doesn't handle clipping paths. So if you are using a file with a clipping path, save it out as another version. Like save the file as a version, then you can just drag over the layers that you've changed into your original. I learned that the hard way. The first few times I used body paint, because as a lot of the times in the industry, especially when with myself, I came in not really knowing 3D, not really knowing anything but just basically how to draw and use Photoshop really well. I had to learn all this stuff on the go, so you tend to learn the hard way. But that's it's all good. You learn from your mistakes, as they say. Again, I apologize for the sniffling. I've caught a cold over the weekend. So I'm just there was that dusty kind of grimy paint layer I had on the cement, and I'm just going through it just with the clone tool, just cloning over where there's some obvious seams. I'm also using erase to erase out any hard edges. You actually couldn't even see this when it's in its overlaid state overall. The other top on top of all the other overlays, but with my pickiness and almost OCD attention to detail, I can't live with it. I gotta fix it. So I'm going into the railing here, and there's quite a few seams here because this is the way I broke it up in the UV editor. Another good thing, what you can do is you can separate all your pieces out into OBJs. I do that quite a bit because that way you don't have all these other objects you don't want to be painting in your way, and you can just rotate around, fix seams really quickly. So when I'm in Maya or 3D Max or whatever, I just make a duplicate of every object I want to export. I want to use in body paint. So as you can tell here, I didn't do that, and I'm actually painting on some things I don't want to paint. But sometimes that's it works out to be a good thing. So I'm just painting this out quickly, just blocking the seams. You know, you could essentially say that there would be seams there, like welding seams, but not always in the game world do realistic seams look right. You have to actually fix them, um, unless you go to the detail of making a normal map that looks like there's a welding seam there. But I'm just going to fix them out, fix them up. I'm not going to fix all the seams on these pieces because, as I said, it wouldn't be perfect. This is metal supposedly being welded together, so there would be some seams in the extreme 90-degree corners. So I'm just saving out. I realize there's more seams to fix, and it would just be easier to save it out as an OBJ and have it by itself. So there we go. I'm just going through the whole process again of making a material, enabling 3D paint, applying it to the object, picking the layer I want, projection painting, just fixing little seams here and there. You don't want to fix these ones perfect because, as I said, they're kind of 90 degrees. But on some overlays, you're actually doing grime, so it would be wrapped around depending on what it is. Maybe it's paint splatter, blood spatter, spray paint. You know, maybe somebody tagged something on there, so it would continue perfectly seamlessly across that object. So I saved out that texture. I'm bringing in the new version of that texture, and it's loading up. And there we go. Those changes I made on that singular OBJ are now applied here. So I've got to go through and fix all this up, all these seams. It's quite monotonous work, but it pays off in the long run. Obviously, um, nothing's ever easy. Just some parts are easier than others. And this is an easy part, but it's mind-numbing sometimes. Just like unwrapping. UV unwrapping is one of my least favorite things to do. Excuse me. It's changing some music. Music helps. So I'm just going through quickly here. Little tip: the higher the thing is away from the viewer's eye line as player, um, especially if you can't see the top of it. Um, you know, you don't have to be as perfect as you normally would be. Um, just make sure you know that the player, or you'll never be able to see that piece from that view, from that angle. If you can, if there's a remote chance you can, fix all those seams perfect. If not, you know, if you miss a piece, or if there's like a faint seam, don't kill yourself over it. Or if there's a bit of stretching in your UV unwrap. See this piece here, that top thing, player's going to see that. It's below his eye line, so you need to make those seams disappear. Whereas that top of that light post, you're never going to see that. So the TV I'm just fixing up here with some of this stuff. Not making it perfect, but just fixing it so it's not as plainly obvious. Some of this stuff would stop at that 90-degree seam because of where it's been bent, but most of it would be seamless. So I'm just saving the file here. There we go. Back into it. Projection paint. It's going along fixing all these seams. So I'll just go through all these layers and fix all these seams. Again, like I said, it takes some time, but in the end, it's a big payoff, and it's loads easier than the way we used to do it 6-7 years ago. There's other programs that do this too. You can do it in ZBrush fairly well. I don't think as well personally, but and heck, if you still want to do it in Photoshop. It just takes a hell of a lot longer. Uh, but yeah, I like using body paint a lot, and like I said, I'd recommend checking out that tutorial. That's quite in depth on cgtoots.com. So I'm just going to finish up here and get all my overlays seamed out. I'm almost done.